Today we're discussing one approach the church can take as it manages staff transitions. This is episode 20 of the Sustainable Ministry Show, with two pieces of the puzzle. Well, welcome, everybody. We are back again with the Sustainable Ministry Show, and today we've got Jeff Dunrankin and Priscilla Barnes hanging out with us as we talk a little bit about staff changes in churches and what the church needs to do as they prepare for that. But before we jump in, would you all like to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're at, and then I'm wondering, is there a TV show that you just can't miss every week?
Seven.
So, Jeff, you want to go first?
I would say NCIS Los Angeles.
Well, my wife and I have a couple of shows we watch a lot, but I would say the ones that I'm watching just on my binge watching would be the comic book shows. So, like the DC Legends of Tomorrow is new this season, and I'm caught up, and I don't know what to do now that I'm caught up, but I like that one.
Cool.
And Priscilla, where are you? What do you do?
Well, my name is, of course, Priscilla, and I live in Belleville, Illinois, which is, everyone knows as the St. Louis Metro East area. Probably about 8 months ago, my husband and I just started a new ministry called Ecclesia. And we work with ministry architects. I work with ministry architects with the virtual ministry assistance, where we offer administrative assistance to churches and ministries. So we've been a part of ministry architects for maybe almost 2 years now.
Fantastic. And Jeff?
And I'm also a homeschooling mom of 4.
Oh, nuh-uh. That's the real job.
Oh,
yes.
My word. Well, I am Jeff Dunrankin. I'm the Vice President of Consulting with Ministry Architects, and I've been with the group since just about the beginning. And Priscilla, I am not homeschooling my children. In fact, my children are gone away. They're in California and they're in Chicago, and I'm a semi-empty nest.
Jeff, are you talking the beginning, like Genesis chapter 1 beginning, or?
That's good, Bryant. I like it.
I don't get what you're saying.
Well, a few weeks ago. Oh, let me share my TV show before we get in. I cannot miss a Jimmy Fallon episode, Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And it's hard to squeeze them all in, but I just love it. I love it. He makes me feel like we could hang out and be buddies.
Yeah, he was asking about you last week when he and I were hanging out. Yeah. He said, "How's that Bryant doing? He owes me money."
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be a shortfall. Well, a few weeks ago, we started talking about staff transitions, and the topic of the show was leaving well. And so Jen and Chris and I kind of talked through the whole idea of being interim on a church staff. That at some point, there will be a staff change if you're on staff at a church. It might not be this week. You
guys said we're all interims. Is that the idea?
Interims. Yeah. Everybody. And then Priscilla emailed me and said, "That's all good and wonderful. Great. I love it. But what should the church be doing to prepare for the staff transition?" And Jeff, I think your church has gone through a staff transition over the last year or so.
Yeah, mine. I was a 15-year interim as the youth director at my church, and this year I moved to a position of family ministry director, and we got to transition someone into the position who had grown up in our ministry.
Yeah, our church is going through one. We will be hiring a children's director. That process is underway as this show's going on. But Priscilla, I wonder, can you talk a little bit about what prompted your question and maybe what your first thoughts are there, how the church can be preparing?
We transitioned from a ministry a little under 2 years ago. So we served with that ministry for about 11 years. I was on staff for about just under 4 years. And so it was time for us to transition. And so just that experience and listening to the podcast made me think about that it was just not the person that was leaving responsibility on leaving well, but it's also a responsibility of the church to make sure that they allow the person to lead well.
Right. You might be able to make an argument that it's more the church's responsibility than it is the responsibility of the person leaving. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, so here we are.
So here we are. Now we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's so important about when someone says it's time for a transition, that I'm leaving, that I think the first thing, even before that person announces that, or a person announces that they're going to leave a staff position, that the church has to have a mindset that there are people that are going to leave, and not just that they have people that are going to be there forever, and allow that space for them to hear what God is saying, or manage what life is bringing at them, so that that church can be a blessing to that person as they transition out. And so my experience was a little different than I feel like it could have been handled a little bit better. At the same time, I think it also, it just speaks to how a relationship and how we ought to honor one another.
Mm.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of churches, when they enter the staff transition, they're asking a question more than making a statement of, okay, so what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this?
Absolutely.
Rather than being prepared to be able to say, here's our plan to move forward.
Absolutely.
And those are certainly two different things. Can we talk about job descriptions real quick? Because I think that's a place that's crucial. It's certainly a time for a church to evaluate the staff job description.
Yes.
And we like to see those be task oriented, right? Rather than being high and lofty, to be really specific about what you're asking your staff to do in that process. And it seems like a good time to review those.
Sure. Bryant, I think there are two different kinds of, two different pieces of the puzzle that we want churches to be thinking about when they're going through the transition. We like to use the analogy at Ministry Architects that there's a dancer and then there's a dance floor. And, the dancer are the people. The dancer is the church staff, especially clergy or people who run departmental ministries like the youth pastor or the children's director. And the church hires that person to demonstrate what it looks like to live in rhythm with the melody that God's playing in our lives. What it looks like to be a disciple, what it looks like to worship, what it looks like to serve. And then the dancer is also responsible for teaching other people how to dance. They do that when they're teaching, they do that when they're leading, they do that when they're caring for people around them. So that's the dancer, and that's what everybody focuses on. Most churches have their eye on that piece of the puzzle. But when you started talking about job descriptions, well, that's an entirely different piece of the puzzle, and most churches don't give it a bit of thought. That's the dance floor. And the dance floor is so often overlooked. The dance floor is the infrastructure of the ministry. It's the climate of the ministry. So I'm glad when we're talking about how a church prepares for the departure of the dancer, that you went straight to the question of how are they going to take care of the dance floor? What are they going to do to make sure that the infrastructure is in place so that the next dancer comes to a dance hall that's still put together? What typically happens is the dancer is required to create their own dance floor. They come in to nothing. They create the dance floor, and it's all in their noodle. It's all up here in their head. So when they leave, they take the whole dance floor with them. And we bring in a brand new dancer to an empty space where they have the awful challenge of having to recreate everything from scratch. So in this conversation, let's make sure that we continue to talk about how the church is going to prepare in terms of the dancer, as well as what they're going to do to prepare, for the dance floor.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. I think the blessing for the ministry that we left was that ministry architects had came in and done just laid out, put some sustainable things in place. And so it was such a blessing. We had job descriptions. We had plans in place for the entire year. We knew anyone can come in and see what was laid out and be able to come in and walk it out.
Right, because usually when we enter a ministry and we get this great pile of nothing in a cardboard box, I've heard a lot of people say, "What kind of an idiot left things in this condition?" But typically when we leave, we are the idiot who leaves things in that condition.
Absolutely. So on the side of it, for the ministry, they want to make sure that they have those systems in place and make sure whether it's a youth ministry or the whole church ministry is that they have those systems in place where it's just not one person making everything happen, but that they have a team of people who are working together and more than one person knows what's going on. And when you have absolutely, and when you have volunteers or other staff members that know what the responsibilities that this person is held, that they can come in and they can come in. And I know how this operated, so it's just not a blank slate. So someone else is not coming in. And so it's just not the responsibility of the person that's leaving to do that, but at the same time, it's the responsibility of the church to make sure that those systems are in place so that when that transition happens, then you have things laid out for the next person that's coming in.
Yeah, I think you're right, Priscilla. They're not only in place, but as you said, they're laid out. So,
yes.
It could be that the youth pastor, for example, knows that I have a rhythm, a 3-year cycle that I do ministry mission trips. I go local 1 year, I go out of the state the second year, and I go international the third year. Well, maybe nobody else knows that.
Absolutely.
And so getting this stuff on paper is huge. I don't know if either of you are old enough to remember when Walt Disney movies put out lousy movies. It was about 30 years ago, so probably not. But there was a period right after Walt died.
I know.
Right after Walt died, the movies that Disney put out were horrible. And when Michael Eisner came, what he found was that Walt had carried everything in his head. He liked having it in his head. He liked being the genius that everything passed through. So Walt would carry the storyboards in his head. Walt would carry the plans in his head. And then when he died, nobody knew what to do. And so for years, they made lousy movies until someone came in and explained to them how to get it all laid out so that everybody could be on the same page. I mean, the only way for people to be on the same page is for you to have it on a page. So I like what you're saying there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah, I actually spoke with a guy this week who has been in his position, first time in ministry, had been a volunteer in youth ministry for a couple years, and then decided that that's where he was feeling called to. So he sought out a position, and the ministry really is exploding. He and I spent about an hour on the phone together, but he said, "Bryant, what I'm scared of is I'm the only one involved." And they've been doing a lot of community outreach. And so we talked through that process a little bit. And what they said to him in his interview was, we just want you to see we want to see what you can make of this. We know there's a lot of potential. We know there's a lot of opportunity. And so the church took a kind of a step in faith to hire him to come and do what he learned as a volunteer to do well. And his frustration was that no one else was involved. No one else really had an idea or understanding of what he should be accomplishing and what that would look like. So he's trying to figure it all out, and is doing a pretty good job, but knows it's his. And the real gift, I think, for the church is to be able to say, this is our ministry, and this is how we do it. This is how we run things here. And we are so excited that you have said yes to lead it. I would just love to hear that more and more coming out of churches, that they have hired a new leader for something they've already developed, for something that they already have discovered a call to or a call for.
Well, I'll tell you in my own experience, Bryant, what happened when I left the ministry that I've been shepherding for 15 years and Janetta took over. you know, she had everything in place, and we were lucky that we were overlapped. I trained her, and we overlapped. And so by the time I left, she was able to do what I had done in terms of systems and processes and traditions, and then add her own stuff on top of it. She didn't have to go recreate anything. She took what we had, and so what happened was, this is a great testimony for my leadership. As soon as I left the youth ministry, it grew about 30%. And I think part of that is that Janetta was able to take what was Jeff's specialty and then add what was Janetta's specialty on top of it, and to expand on what was already there, instead of having to go recreate all the stuff that should have been in place. So so that ministry actually thrived in the transition. And just to be clear, for people who like to take notes and have checklists, I'm going to name three things that we talked about and say this is our dance floor checklist. One is that we want to get the systems and processes on paper, out of the genius's head, and on paper, so that they can be passed on to the next person, and so we can see the holes. In some cases, the genius has done a great job, and we just need to get it on paper. In some cases, when we put it on paper, that's when we find out all the holes we've got. So one, get it out of the head and onto paper. Two, get a team in your interim. Don't just hire a cool kid with an earring and a tattoo to say, take care of our kids for the next 6 months. You need that, but you also need this non-anxious, organized group of people, 2 or 3 or 4, who are going to take care of the dance floor. They're the dance floor team. They're going to make sure the systems and the processes are operating well in the interim. And a lot of times they can actually improve the systems and processes while you're out looking for the next person. And we've helped churches do that a million times, so that the next person actually walks into a better dance floor than the person left. And so one, get it on paper. Two, get a non-anxious, organized group of people to pay attention to those systems and improve them. And three, keep your eye on the climate. Priscilla touched on that we're just going to make sure that people know what's going on. People want to believe that something good has happened, but we need to regularly feed them information so that they know something good is going to happen. What's going on behind the scenes, how we're doing on the search. Hey, we have 20 resumes right now, and so we could hire somebody tomorrow, but we're not going to settle. We're going to keep looking until we find exactly the right person. And so that just helps everybody stay a little less anxious about what's going on. So
absolutely. And I also want to touch on, Jeff, what you said that you were able to train the next person that came in. And I think another thing is important is if you have someone that is the youth pastor or whatever the position is that's leaving, and they don't be afraid to allow them to help you in that transition. Don't push them away. I've seen where churches will push, okay, you said you're leaving transition, okay, bye-bye, and I think that's not that's just not healthy. It's not good for the ministry. It's not good for the look of the church and for the look of the relationship that's been formed when that person was filling that position, because they've touched lives and things like that. So you can't just say, okay, you said you're leaving, okay, leave. No, what you want is to try to do transition well, such that the church is being a blessing, like I said, so that they're not just saying, okay, it's over, you're leaving us.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Especially if that person is a healthy person. Sometimes you've got a toxic person leaving, and you're just so glad they're leaving. And sometimes you can add by subtracting. But I think 4 out of 5 times, the person who's leaving would be eager to help the next person do well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, if we can, let's do this. Let's wrap this up, and then come back together and have one more discussion, maybe about the search process.
Awesome.
And a few tips about that. And while I mention that, some of you may have seen this before. It's called Before You Hire, and you'll notice. Oh wait, there are 2 names there. One is our very own Jeff Dunrakin.
Absolutely.
If you're in a transition at your church, or you know your church is in a transition and you would like a copy of this, I've got a couple extra that I would be happy just to drop in the mail to you. So send me an email, Bryant at ministryarchitects.com. Send me a quick email and just in the subject line, just write in their book and then tell me that you'd like a copy of Before You Hire and give me your address. I'll get it in the mail. Where can folks keep up with you guys in the meantime?
I'm on Facebook, of course, as Priscilla Jenkins Barnes, and my email address is Priscilla at ministryarchitects.com.
You can come visit me at my beautiful church in Venice, Florida, or you can email me at the email address that's right there on the screen. And or sometimes you might see me in the movies. I go to the movies a lot.
Nice.
So.
And I'm Bryant Johnson. Now that it's spring, you probably could find me on some bike trails again. And otherwise, email me or find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Bryant Johnson. And don't forget to subscribe. If you watch on YouTube, click that subscribe button. If you listen to us through iTunes as you're driving or running or working out or sitting doing work at your church, don't forget to subscribe there too and share this with your friends. Thanks so much, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ha ha!